Great. I'm not going to stand at the podium too much, but I just want to welcome you all here and thank you so much for dedicating your time to sustainability. This is a lot to take on, especially with a lot of you on other boards and other commitments, so I greatly appreciate it. I'm Nina, by the way. I've been the one you guys have been contacting and or email, and I work in Public Works as the environmental quality specialist, but I'm also the staff liaison for this board. So, anytime something comes up, you guys need something or need resources, anything like that, I'm your go-to person, and we'll probably be working pretty closely together on evaluating different projects and things like that as we move forward. So with that, I just want to start off with do the swearing in.
Good evening. I am Jamie Buster, Deputy City Clerk. Tonight we'll do your oaths of office. So if you all could raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Deborah Foster,
Solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States
solemnly affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
and the Constitution of the State of Kansas,
Constitution of the State of Kansas,
and faithfully discharge the duties
faithfully discharge the duties
of the Wichita Sustainability Integration Board
of the Wichita Sustainability Integration Board,
for the City of Wichita, Kansas, so help me God.
City of Wichita, Kansas.
All right, if you could please sign your oath and sign your acceptance letter, which is I think the third page behind it, and then I'll put those up. You need a pen?
Whole packet or just the two?
Just those 2 pages.
Oh, thank you.
I know, you can frame that so you get more paper.
Thank you.
All right, that's okay.
Yeah, we did it.
All right.
So far, there's
New members. I had a loose agenda for tonight, nothing too specific, but I wanted to take a chance to go over the expectations and roles that this board will play within the city. Have you guys introduce yourselves and get to know one another a little bit better, and then have the chance to maybe bring up some topics that you guys think are pertinent as we start moving forward, and give the public a chance to comment as well. So to start off, I'd like each of you to introduce yourselves, tell us a little bit about your background, what brings you, what skills or knowledge do you bring to this board, and then maybe what you'd like to see the board accomplish or how you envision sustainability in this role, something like that. So I'll go ahead and start over here.
Sure. I'm Philip Simon. I'm your representative for the Park Board. I am an environmental professional that is my profession. I'm the senior manager of environmental health and safety for several manufacturing facilities. So environmental and sustainability are part of my wheelhouse. So it was an easy choice for us. The Park Board has pushed me in this direction. So it's good that we're doing this because this is now becoming the new thing, environmental, socials, and governance. We call ESG. So the city's moving in this direction is a positive step towards things. So it'll be interesting to see what we can get done that way.
My name is Deborah Foster. I was originally trained in zoology and worked as a zookeeper and zoo curator. Then I went back to school and got trained as an architect. And now I really mostly work as a city planner. This is not what I planned for my life when I was 20, you understand, all this just kind of happened. I'm on the Metropolitan Area Planning Commission and I'm their member to this board. I was also for 20 years or so on the Greenways Commission, Greenways Alliance, which is a parks and pathways advocacy group. So I come at this from both a planning perspective and a parks perspective, quality of life. And I really am looking forward to hearing what the definition of sustainability, because there are about 5,000 of them that we're going to be focusing on.
My name is Laura Lombard. My professional role is actually international trade. I've been, recently I've joined Kansas Global Trade and took over for Karen Page about 6 months ago. But as a area of personal interest for quite some time, climate change and sustainability has been a big one. I was part of the group of folks that was really pushing for this board to be created over the last about a year or so. I know there's others in the room who've been working on it for a lot longer than I have as well, but for me, I think what I would really like to see is some really strong strategic planning for Wichita as to how can we create a both environmentally sustainable city and economic development that's related in this area. And when you said there's a bunch of different definitions, mine tends to be kind of the intersection of economic development, environment, and social responsibility and social equity. So looking at all of those areas and how we as a city can really find that intersection and push it forward in a positive way for everyone. I think my biggest contribution is going to be on the economic development side and how do we find ways to make sure that we're doing things that are environmentally sustainable, but also are going to push the city forward in a big way and maybe put Wichita on a map in a different way than we have before.
I'm Jack Brown. I'm representative from the Bike Ped Board. In years past, I was the director of environmental programs for the city of Wichita. I was involved in a number of big environmental projects, groundwater cleanups in Gilbert and Moseley in the North Industrial area. And currently I'm at the University of Kansas School of Medicine. I had several grants also in the area of groundwater, looking at groundwater contamination issues and public health aspect of exposure to contaminants in groundwater. So I bring some expertise in the environmental, particularly environmental history of Wichita. Certainly give my perspective on the for the Bike Ped Board, who is pretty active and involved in a lot of projects to Wichita, one of those quality of place. So look forward to, like the others, seeing how we define sustainability.
Yeah, that'll be a big.
I'm Sharon Dick Graffin with the City Law Department. I assisted Public Works in drafting the ordinance, and I'm here to keep you all legal.
Thank you for that.
Yes, you try.
I am Cody Irwin. My background is geoscience. I'm actually a graduate student right now for geographic information science with emphasis in environmental GIS. My focus has always been environmental related, always in my degree to try to focus on how I can apply geographic information science and geospatial technology to improve the environment. I was also in my undergrad, I focused a lot on geodesign, which is implementing sustainable infrastructure within cities. But I am forward to just dig in deep, and find ways that we can improve the city. I've lived in Wichita my whole life. I currently work as a GIS administrator for the city of Hayesville, but I have been a city of Wichita resident my entire life. So I'm definitely excited to see where we can take this. So.
All right, thank you all very much. You all bring a lot of experience, knowledge to this board. And it's really great to hear, just how diverse that experience is. I think that'll be really crucial in forming these well-rounded policies and programs moving forward. Let's see. I know Esther is also going to be joining us. She is running late to another commitment, so we'll have her jump in and introduce herself when she gets here.
Can you admit folks?
Sorry. So basically, you've read the ordinance, you know a general sense of what the board is about. And so what we are trying to do is have you guys help shape the direction, figure out those strategic plans and what is a priority based on need, ability for the city. And like Laura, what you said with not just environmental issues, but bringing about economic impacts and societal impacts as well. That's something that we're incredibly mindful of, sort of that like Venn diagram of sustainability and making sure that we hit all those points. And so one of the things that the ordinance lays out is that, we have these 5 main aspects that make up the purpose of the board. And, just distilling this down really quick, that includes economic opportunities, climate resiliency, waste and material management practices, community outreach, really important as well. And then affordability and resiliency of all services vital to quality. And so within that, we want to encompass those 3 different aspects and ensure that we are touching on everything and making sure that this is a sustainable city in those 3 ways as we move forward. Put ourselves on the map, making it do well by our citizens. So to do that, what you guys will be doing is, obviously you have your own ideas and a lot of experience and a lot of ideas of how to start us out. And so developing a way to kind of assess everything is important. One of the things that we have been working on for a while now is the assessment matrix to kind of distill down different projects, how they kind of compare to each other, looking at these different criteria of, and these are criteria that are within this Venn diagram of sustainability. So being able to look and see, well, how useful, how beneficial is this project, this policy, this program to the city, to its citizens. And so we will hopefully have some more information for you guys about that in months. That is something that is still progress. That is a partnership that we have done with WSU's Environmental Finance Center. So they have been working with us, their expertise and knowledge as well to help sort of drive this tool, help us evaluate. And that's not to say that this matrix will be the ultimate deciding factor when we're looking at projects or policies or what have you, but this will be a tool to help guide, prioritize certain projects. We'll have other supplemental information, of course, financial analyses like that to also help us prioritize and plan. And so that's one piece of sort of where we're starting. You guys will also have the ability to create ordinances and create recommendations for city council. And you have that ability to really make a stamp on a policy within the city. That's going to be really crucial. Of course, I think a lot of city staff and a lot of public have projects in mind, have a lot of priorities and things that are very near and dear to their hearts. And so a lot of this will be, you guys will be formulating ideas, but you'll also be taking ideas from staff, from the public, and workshopping those and figuring out the best way forward based on priorities and the feasibility within the city. And ultimately, this will lead us to creating climate adaptation and mitigation plans for the city, which is an essential part, with increased extreme weather events, things of that nature, where we are seeing a lot of changes. And so all of these pieces, these projects and everything will basically culminate in this larger plan that you guys will help to develop. So obviously that comes with a lot of planning and a lot of strategy. So you guys are the ones who will help determine that. So I mentioned before that community outreach is going to be important. One of the things that we want to make sure is that we are prioritizing the community's needs. And so we want to make sure that they are being involved, their voices are heard, and their priorities are being met, their needs are being met as well. So that component in there, one of the solid parts of the purpose of this, where we want to make sure that just to keep that in mind. Well, and that will, I'm sure, come with its own planning as well, as far as how we outreach and engage with different partners, groups, communities, and things of that nature. Does anyone have any questions so far?
Yeah, so in terms of the board composition beyond the folks that are in the room, has the board been fully appointed yet? Or do we still have more people who need to be appointed? Where does that all stand?
We still have 5 vacant seats. We do have 9 members right now, some of whom were not able to make it tonight. One thing that is a challenge, as I'm sure you all know, trying to get everyone in available for a certain time is incredibly challenging. So we're trying to figure out the best way to engage the most people. And we might try and alternate, but enable to engage all of our members, but we will have to assess that here. But yes, all of our members that have come from other boards are filled, and we are waiting on council appointees to be filled. We're hoping we'll see some more of that in the next few weeks. But unfortunately, I don't have access to the applications or anything like that, or if anybody is being considered. ABC, and hopefully have some more people join us soon. What else?
To be more structured to, are we going to be assigned specific tasks to do things, or are we generating our own direction? Are we supposed to generate our own direction?
Well, that's one of the things I was going to touch base with you guys about. You have the ability, if you want, to formulate your own direction. If you would like some more structure, we can definitely figure that out. But you guys have the ability to drive this how you see fit. And obviously with input from staff and input from community, but you guys will be the driving force here. And so as far as the things we need to do to get there, there's a lot of next steps involved. So, I want you guys to keep this in your mind, before we meet next time. Some of the things that we might need to think about. One of the big ones will be creation of bylaws. So that will really structure how frequently we'll be meeting. I know right now our ordinance says at least quarterly, but we do have the ability to meet more frequently than that. So if we wanted to meet monthly, we could definitely make that work. Everyone's schedules depending, but something to think about as far as what would be the most effective for getting work done and being able to do things in timely manner. Also meeting everyone's schedule. And another thing that we'll need to figure out are, we have a lot of because we have members from other boards that challenging, and when vacancies come up or when terms expire in other boards, their terms expire here as well. And then we also have situations where for Mayor's Youth Council, it's a 1-year term on that board, and then they largely are not active over the summer. They are high school students. So that's something that would be helpful to sort of solidify some language in as far as how we might deal with certain things like that, so we don't run into issues like these in the future, and we know how to handle. And then another important thing will be the board roles. So like you mentioned, Deborah, as far as having certain tasks, do we want, we'll be determining what positions we would like to have on the board. Are there going to be certain people assigned to handle certain projects or look through an assessment like that? And so one thing I would like you all to think about is how we want to structure that. What board roles are wanted, what board roles are needed, and then who would like to be in those positions. So I'm hoping that once we establish that, then we can quickly move forward with establishing those roles and getting people in their positions, and then moving forward with some more planning at that point. So I think that will help us, at least in the beginning, to guide the process. I won't always be up here talking to you, and you guys will have more time to talk amongst yourselves. So that'll be great, because I don't want to be up here talking all the time. Anyway, so we have another member here. Esther, I'll let you go ahead and introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about your experience, your skill set, or what have you that you bring to the board, and then maybe how you envision Wichita and moving forward with sustainability, or what you would like to accomplish in the future.
Hi, I'm Esther. I am representing Mayor's Youth Council. I think that one of my strengths is, I guess, public speaking. I do speech and debate at my school, and I like to say that I'm pretty adequate at it. I also think I'm very, I guess, organized and creative. So on NYC, we started a newsletter this year, and I basically have set the precedent as to what it will look like in the future. And I think most people have enjoyed it pretty well. What I envisioned for Wichita in the future is, I remember when I was traveling that I saw other cities in which they were able to charge people for plastic bags. And I think that is like a way to incentivize people to switch to more sustainable materials when it comes to just normal everyday shopping. I think that's like, that specifically is pretty cool and something I would like to see Wichita.
And I will catch you up as far as everything we've gone over so far. But that's all I had as far as you know, sort of the bylaws and positions. We'll definitely work towards getting that matrix finalized and get that to you guys for review if you have any questions. Obviously, we would love to have input from other people who are knowledgeable, but I think that'll be a really great tool to get sort of a broad overview of projects, how they compare, and how beneficial they're going to be in the future. And once we sort of have that as well, and in the next meeting, we'll sort of dive more into planning. You know, in order to get a lot of this done, we'll need specific goals. You know, probably more specific than the 5 goals that are listed in the purpose of the board. So what can we achieve in here? What are our specific targets and what are our specific timelines? So that's just something to think about as we move forward. Like I said, you guys will be the ones sort of driving the bus on this. Obviously, I will be here to support with anything you guys need, resources or contacts with the city or research, data, things like that. All right. So those, so just think about those next steps, the positions you're interested in, you know, taking on more of a leadership role, things like that. And then I want to give you guys the opportunity, we're going to split our remaining time. Before we go into public comment, I'd like to give you guys the floor and have you be able to discuss and talk about, you know, if there's any next steps that we're missing or what you guys are thinking as far as getting this off the ground. What is important to you guys to consider, or maybe there's a project you have in mind, or maybe there's a certain direction that you are at least, you know, in the next year or so. So I want to open the floor and have you guys.
So in terms of timeline for the meetings, you know, I think the beginning, maybe having more frequent meetings rather than less frequent. I think we did this on a quarterly basis. We wouldn't do anything. You know, so if we could at least do every month, if not even a little bit more at the beginning, trying to be respectful of people's schedules. I think it's going to take some early work to get things established. And then once things are rolling more, then you can kind of, you know, over time, maybe space them out a little bit longer. But that would be my thought on it. We've got a lot of work to do to get this thing off the ground. So hopefully we can all commit to some time early.
Would agree with her. I also think that it would be beneficial for us to all have the opportunity to brainstorm together as a group and really get like a list of things that we think we can accomplish for sure. And then just set our goals to work towards them. Get it on paper and make a plan.
I hope our bylaws don't slow us down. What are your thoughts on bylaws? It seems like as many boards and commissions as we have in the city, be able to take a template from one of those other.
Right. Yeah, I think a lot of it will be largely the same, you know, with the exception of figuring out how we handle like council being out for the summer, and also being a one-year term versus these roles are 2-year terms. So, you know, putting something down on paper just to have that. It might be that everything else largely is the same to other bylaws for other boards. But just so we know how to address that when it comes up. But if you think of anything else that might be helpful, our own situation to have an addition to, say, general bylaws, then we'll want to be mindful of that as well.
Be more like maybe different, we had committees of some sort, something like that, so you've got your standard chair, vice chair,
Right.
then you have maybe some folks who are doing a couple of different,
Right, basically how you would like to sort of structure things exactly, and having that down so that will come in and out over the years, that we have that as sort of a set way to approach.
Can you get us a template of bylaws so we have something to start with from some, whatever is the most similar board here in the city? Because it's a whole lot easier to edit than it is to start from.
Absolutely.
And I'll be happy to draft those, and, or provide, excuse me, ideas. I have some here, but your animal advisory board are pretty basic, I would say basic bylaws. Your citizens review board are a little more complicated because they have, more quasi judicial issues than I think this board will. I think the committee point was something that I thought would need to be included in the bylaws. As far as structure, the ordinances require that the board vote for a chairman and a vice chair. The way this is worded, my thought was to do that at the next meeting because it's worded on or before July 1st of each year. If you interpret that, if you elected somebody now, it would be better to do it at next month's meeting when you have a fuller board, hopefully. So.
and a chance to know each other a little bit too, right? I mean,
Right.
Yeah, that'd be, my preference is for simpler bylaws rather than complex and plain English. If we can even do that, that'd be lovely.
Possible to just like share like a Google Doc format where we all could view it.
We could put it like on the OneDrive kind of thing, yeah.
I'll just add, I think committees are good in the sense of, so we could, for the community engagement side of it, that, okay, so maybe one of us is the chair of that committee, but then we can invite public members outside of that to join it, so you're getting more of that feedback and more just general help and community involvement.
And then you guys want to start brainstorming some, obviously we can't get into too many specifics without knowing some of the finer details of how things will operate, but you are all here together right now and you have the chance to brainstorm amongst yourselves. So I think taking some time to do that would be really beneficial. So we can, sort of hit the ground running. And then really sort of get things in motion when we meet next year. I have not set that up yet. It's very challenging to find a time that works for everyone, but I'm going to try to, find something that works for everyone. And if I'm not able to do that, and right, like I said earlier, we may try alternating times. So we might do like the first Monday of the month at 4 o'clock or something, and the third Thursday at 6. That way we get everybody from the 14-member board able to participate. But I'll go ahead and you guys don't have to raise your hands or anything. I encourage you to discuss any ideas, any brainstorming thoughts that you might have just as far as proceeding further and getting this on.
One comment on the bylaws, if you're talking about committees, I don't think we have no idea what those committees might be.
Yeah.
So I would think you would not worry about that in the bylaws, other to say chair has the discretion.
To create an ad hoc committee, that's all we need.
Yeah.
I liked your idea about the plastic bags because I think we all need to remember that we're as ambitious as we may be, we're probably not going to be doing any great global changes. So we need to remember that we're focusing on a city and what the city can do. And to my personal inclination is to try and find a few small things first that we can make a change that gives us some successes. And then build from there. I don't want us to try to do some highly controversial thing that ends up just ticking people off and then nobody wants to hear from us again. Which can happen in Wichita.
I think it was in like, it was like 2 summers ago, maybe. We were like traveling in the East Coast. I think it was like New York or Boston, where we had to pay money to get like plastic bags or like basically any bag. And I think like, you know, most people don't want to spend money just to get something that they could probably already transport with their own bags. So it's like, I think it's material. It's
Back of my mind, when you said that, coming way back from my zoology background, I tend to think of sustainability from a species diversity standpoint, and there's not an enormous amount a city can do. But I remember driving across Texas in the spring once, many years ago, and the highway right-of-ways are all planted. This started with Katie Bird Johnson deciding that she was going to plant wildflowers or have wildflowers planted. That is unbelievably gorgeous, and B helps sustain an enormous amount of wildlife, especially insect wildlife, butterflies, so forth. That and it's economical. We actually tried it here in Wichita some years ago, I think up on K96. And the design was done and the installation was done. Wildflower seeds were planted. Unfortunately, the word didn't get down to the mowing guys, and they spent 2 years mowing it all off, at which point everything was dead. So I'm hoping that, you know, there's a little more awareness now. But that's the kind of project I would like to see. Pick something that people might get excited about.
I think you and I are on the same page with. I've been a long time volunteer at Great Plains Nature Center, and one of the main things is trying to protect the native flora. So I think that especially in our parks, you see a lot of like the invasive bush honeysuckle. One thing that I'd like to focus on is for sure making sure that, you know, when we are planning and doing things, landscaping in our parks and our city buildings everywhere, you know, that we oversee that we're planting native species of, you know, flora to make sure that they're not just going to be planted and then just spread and invade other native plants and just kind of like disrupt the entire ecosystem. That is, a lot of people don't realize that, you know, while we all may see, oh, it's the, you know, it's a Great Plains, all we see is field because we're Kansans, but you know, there's a very diverse, you know, ecosystem among us and all around us. And I think that that's something that I have personally always been passionate about, is protecting that, making sure that we can serve that.
It can be surprisingly urban. I have a butterfly garden in the alley behind my house in Delano.
Working on my own, so I might ask for some tips.
It doesn't have to be, you know, an enormous project. It can be a lot of little projects that add up to make an enormous difference.
And even some things like in the parks, you know, monarch way stations, you know, pollinator gardens, things like that, for sure.
Grass instead, or buffalo grass instead of fescue.
Absolutely, absolutely.
We're discussing trees at the next park board meeting next week, so. Sending the city council a tree ordinance. So right now there's not one. So ours is very slim compared to other cities. So that's what we're reviewing next week in park board meeting. So that should come out in the next couple of months. It's looking at species that belong here versus, you know, species that don't. So.
And that again is something, there's no single, you know, more local thing you can do for climate change than to plant a tree. And Wichita has lost an enormous amount of trees over the last 20 years or so from ice storms and various other diseases that have swept through various varieties, so the budget for trees in the city of Wichita was pretty much slashed to nothing when COVID started. But I would like to see, you know, us do some lobbying to get that budget up, because it isn't just, oh, that's pretty, let's put a tree in. There's
And that's part of our discussion next week.
reasons to do it.
We're cutting more trees down than we're putting back in.
Yeah.
So,
And one thing that, so, I mean, I work as a GIS administrator for the city of Paceville. I don't know if the city of Wichita has this currently, but, you know, we have a tree farm where we plant from seedlings our own trees and we're growing them, so the city's.
down along Linwood, the Linwood Community Center, there's a tree.
Oh, okay, good to know.
I'll kind of break in and say, I think having some really small attainable goals is good. We need to do that. I also think that we need to take bigger picture and look at where do we want to see Wichita in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, right? And have that vision out. So yes, you know, in this next year and in our first year, what kind of attainable things can we actually do? But where do we, I mean, what's the vision here, right? What's the picture? What are we? And part of what we argued for when we were trying to get this board in the first place was the fact that we're losing people like her left and right because Wichita is not doing the things that are bigger than what we're talking about right now to keep them here. So it's an economic issue as much as it is everything else, right? That what's the big picture for us? What do we want to be as a board trying to facilitate bringing in companies into Wichita that are going to help with green development in various ways locally, and I do look internationally, so I mean just looking globally on that. Do we want to have programs here in Wichita that are, you know, maybe educationally focused on sustainability to create folks who are going to be able to stay here to work on those issues locally? So I'm not saying this as well as I'd like to tonight, but I think it's got to be two-tiered. We've got to have that global discussion of where do we want to see us in the future, and then to your point, okay, what actual steps and what's doable within a year.
I absolutely agree. I was thinking more of tactics and
Sure.
getting started with some successes.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I mean,
But,
showing
yeah.
the community that we're actually doing something, and absolutely.
I mean,
We look at some other communities that give us some ideas, some communities that have had success. This issue of sustainability, and it might spark some.
So many opportunities. I'm thinking of, what is it? One of the suburbs of Kansas City is actually one of the best in the country for green infrastructure for stormwater management. And the green infrastructure is often more economical than the gray infrastructure, building concrete to handle all your runoff. But we have enormous inertia to keep on doing it the same old way. But that's the kind of long-term change
Right.
I would really like to see in attitude. And biggest one, and this is very much an economic issue, is sprawl. As long as we keep sprawling, we're digging our hole deeper and deeper. And getting our local developers to recognize that is going to be very challenging.
No, it's a huge issue. There was just a speaker recently, maybe you saw him at Friends University talking about that exact issue.
There, yeah, I
Yeah.
wondered if you were there.
Yep, and it is, it's not just Wichita, although Wichita's very good at it. But it's a problem for cities in general that the economic momentum is to push outward. But you're actually making it harder and harder to fund that because you're spreading all of your resources across a lot more land and not necessarily facilitating the same amount of people either. So, you know, how do we bring people more back to the urban core and utilize our urban core? And it's starting, I mean, Wichita's been doing that. It's not, I don't think it hasn't been, but more so, how do we make the downtown an area where young folks like Esther here would, stay in and live in and both work and live and for a period of time or whatnot, that type of dynamic that, those are big picture things. So they're not something that we're going to fix overnight, as you're saying, but just having them in our in our view. And so when we're picking the projects that we're working on, maybe we pick some projects to work on the next year that some go towards more what we've been talking about here in terms of the plastic bag issue or getting more native plants in the city. And then other, another project that has something to do with economic development, but they're all headed in our direction that we want to go, but measurable and doable within a year to start, and then build that momentum, as you're saying, from a tactical standpoint to really do the big stuff.
I think it's like, when like you talk about like a global or like, I guess, national impact. Right now in, I do policy and we have a resolution and it's about, like water resources. And it has like, and people advocate for like plans, which are like methods in which they think they can support this resolution. And there's just been a lot of like interesting plans that I think, if we're considering like material ways in which we could positively benefit like sustainability. So things like, we were talking about like economic like expansion, things like cap and trade. And this is like, I'll have to like look over it, but like, it's basically some kind of like, it's like a market incentive in which people like somehow through like trading, like pollution, they cut back on pollution, but like, you know what? Next time we meet, I can talk about it more because I completely forgot what exactly it is.
Cap and trade is an issue. I don't know that that's one we want to tackle here for a lot of reasons, some of which are political.
Yeah, no, I know.
But to your point, I think finding way, I think energy efficiency for the city could be another one that we look at. For instance, this building, like, could we do an energy efficiency study and then mitigation to make even just, City Hall greener, and then expand that to other city buildings and over time, as people get more comfortable, maybe looking at other ordinances about energy efficiency, and we can figure out whether that's politically viable or not as we go, but those types of steps.
Or advocate for city creating some structure to encourage development of electric vehicle charging stations.
Absolutely. That's huge.
Low hanging fruit, people.
No, it is completely. And we know now that a lot of the major manufacturers of cars are going to stop producing gas powered cars here soon. So soon being 14 years, but that's going to go by fast. The 14 years is going to be here before we know it.
So we
the
need to
city
be
gonna be
ready
ready.
before then.
Exactly. And more people are going to start buying them and before that happens. So yeah, absolutely. I think something like that could be on our kind of our short list of things that we prioritize that he says low hanging fruit to start and then move forward from there.
I definitely think that we are for sure already headed in the right direction. Just after meeting with my council member, I was amazed at how many, electric buses there were and things like that. I had no idea that was even a thing, and just implementing the infrastructure, sustainability as a whole, I don't think would be too difficult for us. I think that we've already got quite a bit of momentum. We're heading in the right direction already for sure. So that's all just they're in. Economic sustainability is like, that's yes. I 100% agree with everything you're saying. It's amazing. So it's really exciting.
Want to work on the plastic bag thing, getting other people. So we cleaned up Clap Memorial Park back in September. We have 25 trash bags full of bags. We pulled out of the park. 25 trash bags of nothing but trash of plastic bag and cups. So it was the main two things we took out of the park. So that was just one cleanup. So if you want to work on that, you got to get people to realize how much that bag collects everywhere. So most of this came from Dillon's or the Quick Trip of the corner. People realize how much they pile up everywhere.
Is it a plastic bag task force? Is there not, or there was, or we've?
Yes, there is.
What's happening with that? Is it moved forward at all? Is it?
I think they are waiting on, WSU is conducting a litter study. So that's sort of informing where trash is gathering. And I think they're waiting on the final report for that. And then they will go to council with a recommendation, I believe, in the new year as far as next steps.
I've heard Kroger is moving away from plastic bags within a certain amount of time, too, aren't they?
Yeah, I don't know the exact time frame, but they are committed to eliminating plastic bags.
I think though, there's an object lesson for us about making sure we address the economic component of anything we want to do in recycling, which once COVID started, or well, actually anyway, within the last few years, recycling, my firm works with a lot of small cities around South Central Kansas who have recycling programs, unlike Wichita. Well, we sort of have some, but we have municipal recycling programs, but they were barely breaking even when they could sell recycled materials. And when they suddenly couldn't, that became an economically unsustainable goal. They could not recycle anymore because they couldn't pay for it. So we need to always bear in mind the economic sustainability of anything we suggest. It's a real bummer, but you know, got to do it.
And I think that, you know, you bring up economic sustainability. I feel like I have to. I'm obviously on this board, not just to, you know, positive change, but obviously I definitely want to also learn along the way. And I feel like I need to break free of my own bias of, you know, the environmental standpoint that I come from, and shift it to also include economic sustainability. You know, it's not just all about, you know, like invasive plant species. You know, it's also sustainability as a whole, which includes economic sustainability and all that stuff. So I definitely, I'd like to hear more of your ideas too. You know, just to know. So I don't know if there's a way we could all.
Yeah, I did a presentation that I sent to the city. I'll send it to everyone on the board. And it's not so much, so it's nice now, you know, 20 years ago, a lot of things weren't necessarily as economically viable as they are now in terms of environmental, but they are now, right? And even more so than traditional past you know, areas. So for instance, in energy, for example, you know, solar and wind are certainly at, if not more, economically viable than other industries, right? The traditional ones. So things have changed. So I guess when I'm thinking about economic development and I'm thinking about environment today, they can go hand in hand. You know, and we need to obviously always double check that, you know, assumption, but we're at a time in our history where we can do a lot. It's economic, and then actually it's probably going to power more economic development for the city than before. And I think that's, if we can show that to the public too, then we can get a lot more buy-in for projects that 10 years ago, 20 years ago might not have been as economically viable or desirable, but they are now.
Absolutely.
I'm glad that we have a GIS person. I do maps in a small way for the company I work for as part of comprehensive planning for cities, but I know the power of a really good diagram. So
Absolutely.
For sure.
What kind of resources will Wichita State's Finance Center provide? All of this.
As far as, so with the plastic bag task force, they are supplying the litter study. For our purposes, we're jointly working on this matrix for assessment. They largely, they won't have, you know, a huge role in how you guys operate. They're mostly focused on completing the matrix, and then we will be the ones, you know, moving forward with that, and they will. That's sort of their completed product.
So, and I know that I believe it was Deborah that mentioned the, or it might have been you, the energy efficiency. Could WSU help us with that? I mean, do they have, would that be something that we can, you know, reach out to them for assistance with? Or something like building?
Potentially, they do have staff with varying expertise. And so that's something that we could look at. We also, it would have to be contracted work. So we'd have to take a look at how feasible that is with our budget. That's always something that we'll have to keep in mind. But I am also here as a resource to help. I have experience in environmental policy and public policy in general. So I am at your disposal to help out with anything that you. All right, if there's nothing else for the moment, we'll go ahead and move on to public comments. But I did also want to mention that, you know, you guys touched on a lot of things that staff have, you know, sort of brought up in the past, and some projects that we have, you know, wanted to accomplish as well. And so I will definitely start compiling some more information on initiatives that we've done, sort of where we're at. Like, I know we've done audits in the past as far as I believe water. And so, you know, that's something where we can expand on some of those things. And, you know, just take a look at what we've done and how that drives us forward, and get you guys some more information on that. All right, I know we only have a few minutes left, but if anyone from the public would like to comment, we'll go ahead and open that up. Please be mindful of our time. I'm limited to a few minutes. We'll go ahead.
Hi,
If you want, you can come up to the podium.
I think you can hear me. I'm Carla Jackson Patton, and I did apply for a position on this board. But what I would like to see the Sustainability Board address as far as economic development and environmental justice and infrastructure rebuilding. We have an opportunity zone. Well, there are 6 opportunity zones, but two of them are located in District 1. One is WSU. The other one is located in the McAdams area. And I'm pushing towards sustainable building. In Michigan, Austin, Texas, and Tennessee, there are opportunity zones that are building, they're building solar, creating microgrids. And we have an excellent opportunity here in Wichita to create a model for this part of the country. So, you know, when you're talking about long-term, long-range goals, this is one of the things that I've been pushing for. And, you know, just for planting that seed, that's what, you know, of course, that's a long-term goal, but the opportunity zones have been established here already, and it's just kind of being ignored. So we've already got that in place. And as far as environmental justice, when you talk about recycling, we're all involved with plastic waste, not just plastic bags, but plastic bottles and things like that. But when you talk about water quality, you have people that they rely on bottled water because their homes are older, you don't know the quality of their water, but then there are barriers to recycling because people can barely afford to pay for trash service, much less pay to recycle. So those are issues that I would like to see addressed, being that, you know, we can't be taxed, or, you know, people can't be charged or have to pay to recycle. There needs to be some kind of way that could be addressed.
Did you want me to go up?
You can if you would like.
It makes it easier. Clayton Pearson is my name. Just to give you feedback on a couple of points I saw you guys talking about. As far as looking for easy wins, I think one of them, the park department may be starting on this actually, is any place you have a park or a trail multi-use path, and any place that has a bench or a rest area, plant those deciduous trees there to the west. In other words, during the summer, during that heat, those benches and rest areas, shade that out to make it more comfortable, therefore easier and more comfortable to use. And then also to try to make it easier for businesses and give them an incentive to be more sustainable, particularly in their transportation and their business operations. I think it'd be interesting that for the city's minimum parking standards to allow bike parking and scooter parking to count towards minimum parking. So if the current zoning requires, say, 30 parking spots, and either they don't have the space or they don't want to spend the money on that, say, fine, you can have 22 parking spots, but you're going to put in 10 bike parking or secure scooter parking. Saves them money and actually increases foot traffic if done properly. And then as far as your bigger goals, the way I phrase one of my own personal goals of what I would like Wichita to be is basically, I think it should be just as easy or even easier to live a productive life in Wichita without driving as it is to drive. And I think a good place to test bed some of those projects and ideas would be wherever the city of Wichita has employment, and use your own employees as the test bed. A specific example of that is, I know a former employee that used to work in City Hall in the finance department that would have preferred to bike to work. Instead, he drove all the time. So the reason he did that is he had no secured bike parking to put his bike. So instead of having a 10 by 10 room facilitate his parking, the city was paying for a parking garage for him to come to work when it really wasn't the option. And if you use those as test beds, that would reduce your barriers on gathering data, testing effectiveness, and making adaptions. When you try something and it doesn't work, okay, let's try the next thing.
Comments? Are you taking comments online?
Yes. Go ahead.
My name is Nalini, and I love what I'm hearing from the people on this board so far. Thank you for your service and ideas and the long-term outlook that I'm hearing. I also appreciate your recognition that we need to get some things done in the short term and get those quick wins. Public input and buy-in are essential. Economics is at play in sustainability as well. So specifically, I support items that were mentioned tonight, such as solar powered city buildings, expansion of electric vehicle charging stations, native grasses and flowering plants and trees. And one of my asks, I would wonder, I guess, if the board can consider just keeping tabs on other projects going on. And I heard mention of the litter study and the plastic bag task force. And also just be maybe a connecting hub for other projects going on. And, thinking about like solar that might be going in at the county buildings as well, and just kind of know what's happening in the city, and just being not only a board that might take action, but also be informative and deliver resources to those that might be interested in knowing what's going on.
Comments?
I just have a couple of short ones. And I know this pertains to this board, but right now, but I know I talked to Tammy Alexander with the Clean Cities Coalition, and she's an expert in transportation, and that's what she does. She's the ribbon cutting for a lot of the charging stations that are, if you're all aware of this or not, that are going across our state right now. And I just want to put a plug in for her, for the city council, to make sure she's included because she really knows her stuff. And she'd be an excellent candidate for this board. So that's all I have. Oh, and Kent Rowe, who went to the Sierra Club thing, so he's not here right now. But air quality studies, he can work on that at the university, and so anything you need for air quality studies, I would have to say that Kent Rowe would be the person. Yeah. And Laura does. So,
And Abby, yeah.
yeah.
Much. If there are no other comments from the public, we'll go ahead and end public comment period. All right, and that's all we have for today. So Sharon, do I need to get a motion to adjourn, or can we? Okay, well then I think we are adjourned then at this point. You guys are welcome to stick around for a few minutes and just chat amongst yourselves and get to know each other a little bit. But all formal proceedings are. Thank you very much for coming.
You do need to be careful that you don't discuss as a group, that you don't have an open meetings violation.
Right,
2 or 3 of you together, that's fine, but you can't talk all five.
exactly. Yes, thank you for clarifying that, Sharon. All right, thank you, everyone.
Have a-